Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar today. We've got myself and Mark Hill from JTF Marketing, and we're going to be going through optimizing email deliverability in Marketo. So just a little bit about JTF Marketing before we get started. So JTF Marketing, here at JTF Marketing, we're marketing automation experts. We're a bronze Marketo engaged solution partner for Adobe, and we are very much living and breathing Marketo engage. So our real aim is to really empower you with your marketing automation, to be able to do more with the product, to take it away from just being your kind of standard email batch and blast, and to embrace that challenge of being able to deliver more through the product as well. So as mentioned, you've got myself, Chris, and I am the business development manager here at JTF Marketing, and I'm going to be handing over shortly to Mark Hill, who is one of our marketing automation consultants. Mark is going to be talking about how deliverability affects your campaigns. So about what email metrics you should be looking at, which ones you should be caring about, how to manage sender reputation. It's very much a hot topic at the moment, as we'll go through some new guidelines from Google and Yahoo in particular. How to handle data hygiene and how data hygiene really can impact on your deliverability, and also some of the best practices around campaigns, which can make sure that the deliverability stats that you have remain strong. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to Mark, who's going to take over and go through some of these for you.
That's great. Thanks very much, Chris. So just to kick off then, just looking at what impact deliverability has on your marketing campaigns in Marketo Engage. So it might be worth briefly going over what deliverability actually is. So in order for the sort of tactics that I'll explain later to actually work, it's important that you understand what it is. And it's something we often encounter a bit of confusion when we start speaking with Marketo users about what the difference between especially deliverability and delivery. So it's said that 1 in 5 commercial emails don't make it to the inbox. So that's up from 1 in 6 last year. There's no reason that email service providers want to limit or prevent commercial emails from getting through, but they are faced with a large number of these bad actors trying to take advantage of users, often in criminal scams. So there is a need to do something to prevent that. So that's led them to having to walk this sort of fine balance between letting too many emails go through into the spam folder and potentially letting harmful emails through to their users. So pretty much it's unlikely to get any easier for us as bulk senders. So if an email ends up in spam, that doesn't mean it wasn't delivered. So this is the sort of key thing I'm trying to get across, is that basically delivery is about if an email reaches the email server, but deliverability is if it successfully reaches the server and then it's passed into the inbox. So as for your campaigns, well, poor deliverability means reduced reach, which means your campaigns aren't being seen by the potential audience that you've worked so hard to build. It also means that your marketing budget will have been spent on, hours of work, which results in a poor ROI for your campaign as a whole. And then just to kick you while you're down, poor deliverability can mean that you aren't receiving the necessary engagement from your email sends. So that means that it can actually harm your sender reputation further. And it causes this kind of vicious cycle where as your sender reputation drops, so your engagement drops, and then these sort of feed into each other. So moving on. So delivery rate we've just discussed. If you have a bounce rate below 97%, then that should be sounding alarm bells for you. But open rates, if you start getting bad open rates, but you have good delivery rates, then you might want to think about removing unengaged contacts. It could be a sign that your sender reputation is bad and people aren't trusting your emails you're sending, so they don't want to open them. If your click-through rates start to go down, then it could be a sign that you need to segment your lists better, do better targeting, or it could just be that your calls to action are a bit poor. And then for hard bounce rates, so these are more permanent reasons for your email not being delivered. Say you've moved jobs or you're no longer a student at the university you used to attend. Those are sort of things that would cause a high bounce rate. And if you're getting that, then it could be that your database has basically become a bit stale and gone sort of out of date. So you do get a bounce back message when you, and these usually start with 550. There's also a subset of these codes which can tell you why an email hard bounced, but generally you want to take these with a pinch of salt. So the ones from the big email server providers, they're generally quite good, but others, especially in a B2B setting, most companies have their own email server set up and they've got their own email server admins, and they like to come up with all kinds of weird and wonderful bounce messages. And they also have all kinds of different bounce codes as well. So I actually once worked on a project where we tried to classify all the different types of bounce codes, but we quickly found it was pretty much impossible to do because you would just get all kinds of different codes. So as I said, the messages that come back from the bigger providers where they haven't been customized are pretty good. Some even include a link which has a temporary web page which will explain why your email didn't get through. Another thing to remember is that about hard bounces is that in Marketo you do need to set up your own rules to handle hard bounces. So a common one we like to use is that if you get 3 hard bounces in 180 days, then that person is definitely a hard bounce. So they should be clean from your database. Or at least you should highlight them, put them on a list, think about getting that email verified some other way. And then for soft bounces, so these are the more temporary reasons. So someone's inbox might be full, their out of office might be on and set to reject any incoming emails, which is apparently some people do. Might like to try that someday. There could be issues like the traffic is high or there's some kind of like throttling going on. And then for soft bounces, these affect the email suspended field in Marketo. So this is a special historic field, meaning that it's set to true and then it never actually returns to false again. So what this means is you have to look at the email suspended date and time. And if that's 24 hours in the past, that person is no longer email suspended. They're clear and they're free for sending to again. But this is something that Marketo does automatically. So the really key thing about this is just to remember that you don't want to use email suspended in your marketable lists, because you basically would be saying that you're excluding someone just because they've ever hard bounced in the past, soft bounced in the past. And I've seen people cut thousands of people out of their database just because of that. And especially because this is like just a temporary reason, that's obviously not a good idea. Then for unsubscribes, if you're getting a lot of these, then your database seems, it might have become stale. It could also be that you possibly have poor consent gathering. So if you aren't collecting opt-in properly, then people are obviously more likely to unsubscribe. So basically on this, the key things to watch out for are delivery rate of below 97%. That means hard bounces or soft bounces over 3%, click-through rate below 1%, and any unsubscribe spikes above 0.5%, because these would sort of indicate that there's something bigger going on. And yeah, key thing to remember that just because your delivery is good doesn't necessarily mean your deliverability is good, and that spam filtering is everything that happens after your email is delivered. And then also just the reputation is a lot like a credit score. It takes a long time to build up, but it only takes a few slip-ups to ruin it. Okay, so So now both Google and Yahoo have recently announced some big changes to their sender requirements. So these take effect from June of this year, and they affect bulk email senders of over 5,000 emails per day. So that obviously affects a lot of Marketo users. The changes don't really introduce any new concepts, they just turn best practice into requirements. So as you can see here, the key 3 things are that you must authenticate your emails, you must have one-click unsubscribe enabled, and you must obey spam threshold limits, i.e. you must remain under those limits. So just to talk a little bit about authenticating your email. So this can be broken down into SPF and DKIM being enabled as the sort of the base that you need. So SPF is like the envelope that your email is delivered in, and DKIM is the signature on it saying that it's come from your company. You must also have valid forward and reverse DNS records. So DNS record is just so when you're using the internet, you don't have to remember IP addresses. So when you want to go to Google, you don't have to remember to type in Google's IP address. You can just type in Google. And then forward and reverse just means that it maps back from IP address to the actual domain address, and then backwards and forwards like that. And then you must also only use a TLS connection when it's transmitting the email. So that basically just means an encrypted connection. And then you should also have your DMARC email authentication turned on. So DMARC is just like a layer above SPF and DKIM. It lets you set policies based on your email status. So if someone tries to impersonate your email, then you can decide what happens if it goes into quarantine or anything else. So then you must also make sure that your sender's from heading must also match the from domain. That's a requirement. And yes, this is probably a good point to talk about the difference between shared and dedicated IPs as well, as this all kind of relates to authentication and your reputation. So if you're on when you're using Marketo, you could either be on a dedicated IP or you could be on a shared IP when you're sending out your emails. So the pros for dedicated IP are that your reputation is all your own. So you can trash it if you want, or you can make it really good. This means that you can monitor quite easily and you can quickly respond to changes in the email delivery metrics that I just mentioned. It's also good for issue resolution, so you can more easily find out what's going wrong and try and fix it faster. The cons are you might have volume changes, so obviously you might not be emailing enough people to actually keep up your reputation. And you also have to do this kind of warm-up process at the start. Otherwise, you might get throttled, and it's also a bit more expensive to have a dedicated IP. Then on the flip side, with shared IPs, the benefits are if you've got good roommates, then you can, if they're following best practice, then you would also benefit. But then obviously on the other side of that is you'll be potentially penalized if someone else is not following best practices. You don't need to worry about sending frequency because obviously everyone else is all sending at the same different times anyway, and there's no additional charges for using it. And then on shared IPs, it is a bit more difficult to resolve issues because you can't see what everyone else on the server is doing. So then on to one-click unsubscribe. So this one is quite simple. You basically must give all email recipients the ability to unsubscribe with one click. You must also process those requests within 2 days, and that's sort of taken care of by Marketo. And this is what it looks like. So on the left, you can see an email from GitHub, and they've got one-click unsubscribe turned on. So in Gmail, it shows up as a little unsubscribe link there. You can also access it from the menu here, I think. And then for this is on an iPhone, so the Mail app on iOS. and you can just see it at the top here. So yeah, so that's that. And then finally, you must also obey the spam threshold limits. So Google and Yahoo will be enforcing a clear spam threshold rate that you must stay under. So that means in Postmaster tools, you must be below 0.1% and avoid ever reaching 0.3% or higher. So now on to data hygiene. So you must clean your database and make sure it's not full of people who are unmarketable. So these might be people who are blocklisted, email invalid, they could be soft or hard bouncing, or they might be marketing suspended if you're using marketing suspended in that way. They might also be CRM deleted or unsubscribed. So it's a good idea to create rules based on these because wonderful and customizable as Marketo is, you do actually have to create sort of your own rules, whereas other tools, they would just do it all for you. But Marketo, you can customize them and make them exactly how you want to treat them. But that means you can set up these automated ways to regularly clean your database based on these kind of always on rules. So it's also a good idea to verify your data. So you can get email verification tools such as Zero Bounce or Nether Bounce. These work by checking emails for the syntax. They check the domain, the sender. They look for role-based emails. So if you've got like info@jtfmarketing.co or like service, then it's going to flag those. They'll also look out for disposable emails, and they look for spam trap emails as well. So emails that providers set up to try and spot spammers. And you really want to avoid sending to them, otherwise you might end up on blacklists. And then they'll give you feedback on this. So they're really good tools. You can actually integrate them into Marketo with webhooks. And then you just create a field to store the email status, and then you can use that in your data hygiene campaigns. And another thing that we really recommend is obviously getting marketing consent. So I'm sure you're all doing this already, but it's extremely important. So we'd recommend also setting up a welcome campaign for your new subscribers. So it's a great opportunity to encourage your subscribers to flag you as important, to pull you out of the spam folder if you fall into it. And some providers actually will send normal traffic for a few users into the spam folder just to see if it gets pulled out. And they'll use that as a way to flag stuff as not being spam. And you also just generally want to get people to engage with your emails as much as possible. And then finally, for data hygiene, you want to try and normalize your data. So this can help with segmentation because it means if you have the data there, you're able to personalize your emails more. More personalized emails means emails people are more likely to engage with, which in turn means your deliverability will increase. It's also a good idea to review data sources coming into Marketo, especially form fills on your website and landing pages, because these will often be a source of bad data. So you want to make sure that you have as few free text fields as possible. And try and think about the user journey and all the types of people who are going to be using your forms. You want everyone to be able to easily fill them out and not have a sort of question of what to put in, what not to put in. A common one is job title, which you could put as a role drop down to make it, you could sort of get people to pre-filter the data that they put in. Another one is country. So often see companies not putting the full country list, but then of course people in North Korea are just going to click South Korea. So you really want to give people, even from countries that you don't want to market to, you want to give them the opportunity to select their country so that you can then handle that however you want. So that's that. So then on to some best practice. So If you segment your subscribers based on engagement, and then you can remove subscribers based on poor engagement. So sending to a list that's not prepped for engagement is always going to be doomed to fail. Another good idea for campaign best practice is to offset send times. So around 70% of global emails are sent at the top of the hour. This is because most bulk email senders will schedule their emails to send at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So that obviously places a lot of stress on email servers. It means there's going to be a lot more throttling and also blocking, and more emails are competing for users' attention when they arrive. So if you just offset your emails by 10 minutes or so, that can have a big impact on your campaigns and also on your engagement. Don't forget, you've also got the Marketo time zone feature for when you're sending to people, you're sending the same campaign to people all around the world. And then I've also worked on a project before where we anonymize send times, and we put these into ChatGPT and asked it when the best send time was based on open rates. There's also some third-party software that'll do this for you too. And then the last tip I've got you to take home is the email header unsubscribe. So this is a slightly controversial one, but complaints are the biggest factor for depreciating your sender reputation and deliverability. So a key reason a subscriber might complain is to simply stop receiving emails, and they might mark your email as spam. So did some research and found that 25% of responders think it's actually easier to opt out using the email unsubscribe link than just simply marking that email as spam. So the one-click unsubscribe does go away to help resolving that. But obviously the issue is that most of those links are buried at the bottom of emails. So you might be interested in adopting McDonald's approach. So they keep their complaints low by transparently positioning the unsubscribe link in the email header. It's a bit of a controversial one, but I'll show you it here. So yeah, you can see that's it's right at the top of the email message, just by the logo. So people can easily see it, and if they want to unsubscribe, then they have the choice to unsubscribe. So finally, the magic question: what is my deliverability score and what is my inbox placement? Well, in Marketo, you can only ever see your delivery rate, and again, that's what we talked about before in the email metrics. So there's actually no way across any service or software that can really help you understand what your deliverability rate or inbox placement scores. There's providers out there that claim to be able to do this for you, but the best they can do is provide an approximation, because every day with every engagement, there's such fluctuation, and every subscriber's inbox is different. So every inbox provider filters and assesses differently. There's no real magic way to tell this, and we've not really found anyone that's cracked that code yet. You might have been able to enable the email deliverability tile in Marketo. So if you click on My Marketo, and then you can see one of the tiles there is email deliverability. So that used to take you to some third-party software called Everest. It's now called MessageBird, and you can use that to set up seed lists. And they basically tell you if your email lands in different inboxes of a seed list. So that's another thing you could try. But then the best way is just to monitor your open rates and the various email metrics that I mentioned earlier. Look at them on a campaign level, but also look at your global metrics so you can identify overall how you're doing. Then you can pinpoint any anomalies. Obviously, there's been some changes recently where open rates are not quite as useful as they used to be, because there are a lot of sort of automated opens now. But you can still use that. You can sort of take a view on if there's any changes at least in the rate, and then you can use that to identify. It's also another reason to keep a marketable list. So if you have a marketable list, then it's much easier to segment that list based on key inbox providers like Gmail, Yahoo, and Outlook. And then you can see how your open rates fluctuate and how your engagement is within those key inboxes. And you can identify, okay, am I doing well? How is my deliverability looking at Gmail versus Yahoo? And then you can try and distill where you're succeeding and any problem areas that might be. And if you do find some issues, then you can actually report those to the email provider, and then they will actually unblock you. It's a bit of a manual process, but it does work. So cool. So that's everything from me for today. I'll pass you back.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks everyone for joining. Loads of really good information from Mark there. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly. We're always here to answer your questions. Appreciate that there's lots of changes this year going on with deliverability and the sender rates especially. We've actually got some blog posts on our website which refer to this. I think Mark, you may have written one of them in particular. So feel free to check those out. They could provide some really useful insights. Until the next time on our next webinar, we'll see you then.